Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Tales from the Fandom. Today, I am joined by a West Coast person that I've had the pleasure of following on Instagram for quite some time, and I'm super excited to get to talk to her today. Bryce is joining me from the West Coast. How are you doing today, Bryce?
I'm doing great. Happy to be in this virtual space with you.
I'm super excited. I remember that I stumbled across your Instagram, I think during either like somebody sharing your work, and I specifically went through your Instagram earlier today, and it was your Katara cosplay that
Oh,
somebody had
yay.
shared, and I was like, that is so great. I love it. Let me follow her and check out her other work. And you do so much incredible work on your cosplays
Thank you so
and
much.
on your reels and your stories with everything that you do, and it just you're like it's like you're multi-talented attack cosplayer, musical person, and I just love it.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you. I'm glad that Katara was the one that brought you to Bryce cosplays. That one I was really proud of that one. I remember when I was putting it together and I was kind of as a cosplayer, I get insecure if my cosplay isn't super specific to the actual character. So I kind of called it like an avatar bound, kind of a play off of Disney bound. Because
Hmm.
Disney bound, there's a lot of like wiggle room. You can just sort of put a look together. And if it kind of has a nod to the character, then that's enough. And with Katara, I was like, people will get this. People will get it. But I'm a cosplayer on a budget. And when you're a cosplayer on a budget, sometimes you have to pick and choose which cosplay you're going to go all out on. And that one I felt um, I was going to kind of keep it with what I had in my closet. I was cutting up like for the white band that Katara has like around her waist. I cut up like an old t-shirt just like tied that around my waist. And I had like some old harem pants from, I don't know, like forever ago that I bought. And I just sort of was like digging through my closet. And then I had extra hair extensions and I threw it together. And then the water editing happened. And I was really insecure about that because the first round of Katara cosplay I did, I edited the water myself and just on Facetune, like on my phone. And I was
Hmm.
really insecure about that. Have you seen the Avatar Last Airbender movie that tragic?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So whenever I think of bad water effects, I think of that. And so when I was editing it, I was like, oh God, I hope this at least looks better than what that movie did. And so I don't mean to just like completely trash the film, but I think within the Avatar Last Airbender fandom, everyone is in agreement that that film never happened.
Hmm.
It just doesn't exist anymore. So there's a lot of rambling and a full on tangent for that cosplay. But then after I did my first round of photos for that, I ended up sending it to a really cool editor, and she added some really sick water edits, and then I posted those again. So I'm not sure which ones you saw. If they were simple water edits, that was me, my humble editing skills. But then there's the other one, uh, the more advanced editing, and that was I think let me see if I'm pronouncing it right. Dea Hariasis Realm is the editor. She's really awesome on Instagram.
I think it was the second one, the the
Really
the
fancy edits.
the really fancy edits that I saw. But I do want to say, because I know we're talking about this now, and we'll pick up cosplay near the end of the podcast. But with people who are doing cosplays, I've been finding, especially within the past year or two, like right before COVID started, so like right before then, there's been a lot of people going away from the must be screen accurate, must be perfect, must be this, to where they're putting
Yes.
their own flair on it, they're putting their own stamp on it, and
Yes.
I have been loving that more so than the screen accurate stuff. And kudos to the people that do the screen accurate stuff because that's
Yes.
really amazing. But their originality and individuality that I get to see in people's cosplay is just wonderful and stunning.
I love it too, and I think that's kind of how I sort of dipped my toe into cosplay initially. But again, I started out like sort of downplaying my cosplay of just like, oh, here's a look. I would call them looks, or I would call them, bounds, but I would not call them full on cosplays for a while because I was just like, just I didn't know the community yet when when I first started my Instagram. And so I kind of went in hesitantly and just sort of like, I'm just sort of trying to, it's kind of like this character, like you get the idea. But I'm definitely riding the wave. As of late, I've been riding that wave of here's my version of this character. And just sort of having fun with that, especially being a cosplayer of color and like having natural hair, like this afro. I try to like incorporate that a lot. So like when I started out my first couple rounds of posts back in 2019, one of my first cosplays that I put out was Raven from Teen Titans, and I had a wig and everything. And then later I was like, I kind of want to do this with my fro. And so I got like some purple hair wax and did that, zhuzhed it up, and did a natural haired version of Raven. And then same thing with my Kita cosplay. I started out with a wig because I wanted to be screen accurate. And then a year later, I was like, okay, I want to do it with my afro. And then had my afro picked out. And then I had like a little braid and kind of made it, something that if Kita had an afro, that's what I imagine she would look like. And so that's been really fun and it's been really inspiring seeing other cosplayers sort of step outside of that box. Um,
Hmm.
and I get kind of I guess I get a little discouraged sometimes when I see the really, really big cosplayers and they are just like so freaking polished, and then but I know that their budget is probably different than mine and they have sponsors or they have, just different resources. And so
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, let me just look at what I have and what I can do. And it's been fun and it's been a really fun challenge to see, like I said, with my guitar cosplay, like digging in my closet to see what stuff that I have that I can throw together. I mean, the like sort of blue robe, like overcoat thing that I wore for Katara. I got that. I think I was like thrifting like 2 or 3 years ago and bought that, thinking that, oh, maybe for one Halloween, like this was before I like actually started cosplaying. I was like, maybe for a Halloween, I'll just, like I'll be Katara and I can sort of fake my way into making this something that could be for Katara. And then, fast forward to when I actually did it. And I was like, no, this can totally work and I'm going to make it work. And this will be my version of it.
Absolutely. And you do such a great job. Um, but we're gonna pick up with that conversation later, and we're gonna jump in to the fandom that you called out specifically. You're like, we're going to
Yes.
talk about this because we've got a great lineup of conversation for everyone listening. But we're kicking things off right now with an animated series that I just got into maybe 2 years ago and finished it up last year because of COVID,
Hmm.
and had time. But Steven Universe, which was
Yes.
a fascinating animated series that was perfectly bingeable because the episodes are so
Right.
short, you can go through so many
Yeah, you can
in
really
in
fly
like an
through it.
hour.
Yeah, you can
Oh
definitely
yeah.
fly through it. So much happens though, and it's kind of like it's crazy. There's like a full character arc and so many things happen and you're like, "How many episodes did I just watch and how long were each of them?" It moves so quickly and it's nice.
It's incredible how much they do with the time that they had for each episode. And you're like, how
Yes.
did they fit like all these character stories and arcs and beats and overarching story plot in that time period? It
Yes.
amazed me.
It's truly the overarching storyline that really, really gets me. I've watched it through like maybe 3 or 4 times now, like over the past few years, and I just and then, Steven Universe Future. Oh, what a blessing. That I'm so glad they blessed us with that, just to really, really bookend everything, tie it up real nice, put a bow on it. But I've watched it through a few times now, and after having, sat with Steven Universe Future and then going back again to the very top, just seeing the things that Rebecca Sugar just sort of embeds throughout the whole show over the course of years, and it's just like it is incredible to me. It's such good storytelling, and it's I think it introduces a lot of really interesting themes to people, without it being so on the nose. You know what I mean? There's just a lot of subtext
Hmm.
in every relationship, in every situation. And Steven's this cute, he starts off this as this cute little kid. And you're just like, okay, well, how deep can this show get? And then you keep watching and you're like, I mean, I cry every time. It's just, there's so many things. There's just, and I don't even know where to begin. I mean, between, the issues he has losing his or actually growing up without his mother, that, and trying to live up to certain expectations, trying to live in his mother's shadow, and then the crystal gems being literal aliens, but, trying to fit in and trying to trying to find their place. They belong and they love the earth, and humans love them and they love humans, but they're still, except there's that whole like xenophobia that they touch on in there as well. There's, I mean, environmental issues that they touch on. Steven really loves the environment. Depression, when Steven just gets overwhelmed and he's trying to be there for everyone else. He's always trying to be strong for everybody else and trying to fix problems. And he keeps fixing problems. And then we discover in Steven Universe Future that he's so used to fixing other people's problems that he's neglected his own, and he hasn't,
Hmm.
done any work within himself to sort of be okay and to find some happiness and some peace. Everyone around him has moved on and he's still stuck in the past, like all of these different themes. And I'm just like, yo, that's so relatable. It's just so relatable in just so many different ways. Pearl's issues with Rose, that love that was unrequited for just thousands of years worth of unrequited love, and the damage that did to her. And then when Spinel gets introduced in the film, and the abandonment issues that happen there, it's just I literally could go on and on and on.
Well, you're talking about, starting off Steven Universe with him as a kid, and happy go lucky, and then eventually all these things start coming in. And I'm thinking, the best way to think about it is you're in a pool and you're swimming, and all of a sudden you find yourself and you're in the deep end, and it's like
Mhm.
that's how deep this show goes with what the stuff that they're tackling across the board.
Yeah. Yeah, across the board, truly. Oh my goodness, so many themes and so much great music. There's a lot of great, just really moving music, and some of it's just it. Again, a lot of it seems just fun, like on the surface. Everything just seems light and fun. Even the animation style and the colors and the design of all the characters, everything just seems sweet and innocent and fun. And a lot of it is. It is a really pure show with really pure characters, but there's so much complexity embedded in all of that. And I think the more you watch and the more you discover that, you're sort of like learning and growing with Steven in a really beautiful way. And like again, every time I've watched it through, I feel like I go on the journey and discover something new, not only about the show, but about myself. And I know that sounds like way too deep for a Cartoon Network cartoon, but it's just like so true. And that's why I love the show so much, because it really, I mean, it digs down deep. And don't even get me started on the diamonds, like the whole diamond plot line, because they're dealing with loss. How do you deal with losing? They essentially, lost a sister, and how do you deal with that? And they didn't for so long, and they were angry. And White shut down completely, like literally turned off her emotions, and then Yellow was just angry at the world. And then Blue was just depressed and making anyone who came in contact with her depressed. And so no one was dealing with their emotions, facing their feelings, and like trying to move through the pain and move past it. And so when it's, I just, this could be, this could be a long topic. I remember like when all of the diamond stuff started unraveling,
Hmm.
it blew my mind that this was all happening in like 15-minute increments. I just so much was happening, and the relationships and like how damaged everyone is and how perfect everyone's trying to be on the surface. I mean, I don't know what could be more relatable than that. We live in a society where like, social media, we try to present our best selves and we have to be happy and we have to be, perfect. And then deep down inside, are we dealing with our issues? Are we communicating well with others and getting our feelings across and relating to them? Are we treating people the best way we can, or are we projecting things onto them? That happens a lot in the show as well. Are we accepting of different types of people? I love that the show is really big um, on just, I guess, expressing that there's so many different ways that a person can be and a person can live their life, and they're all valid as long as you're being a good a good person. You know what I mean? There's a lot of LGBTQ plus themes and undertones in the show, and I just absolutely love it. I just like live for it because there's no better way to expose, like, for the younger group of people who watch Steven Universe, you know, like
Hmm.
they watch it and they're just soaking it all in, and you see like Ruby and Sapphire in this amazing relationship. The whole fusion theme, is just that in and of itself is so complex, and beautiful to just introduce what means to become one. There's a whole arc about consent between people who fuse, and how
Yep.
you want to be on the same page. And if you like, when Pearl deceives Garnet to fuse, Garnet is literally ripped apart. Sapphire and Ruby don't know what to do about that because they feel so betrayed by one of their best friends. It's hecka deep.
It is. It absolutely is. And it's one of those shows where I remember hearing about it for so long and I was like, I don't know, like the animation and
Yeah.
it's just I come from a certain style of like where I'm like, oh yeah, I like this type of animation, and Steven Universe wasn't. So I was like, you know what? And then people are talking about it. So therefore, if so many people are talking about it, it's not something that I'm like, okay, you know what? Maybe I'll try. Like I brushed it off. I kept brushing it off until one
Yeah.
point I said, you know what? It's time to give it a try, and I did, and I was a better person for it.
I agree. I was a late bloomer to Steven Universe as well. And I remember some friends were like, just watch it. And I was like, no, it just seems like, this like, silly Cartoon Network show. And I don't know, something about it just seemed just on the surface level, that completely superficial, just me glancing at it. I was like, oh, it just looks silly, or, just like for kids or whatever. Little did I know. And they were like, "No, no, you would love it." And they're like, "Just listen to one song, like watch like one video of a song." And I was like, "Okay, fine." And so this was like 2017, and It's Over, Isn't It? Was the first song that was played for me. They were like, "Watch this video, like just listen to this song." And so I'm listening to Dee Dee Magno Hall sing "It's Over, Isn't It?" Like, and watching Pearl dance around, and I was just like enamored immediately. Dee Dee's voice, like, just drew me in, and because she comes from musical theater, I just immediately like could relate to her singing style the most. And so they knew that that was like the song to play for me to get me hooked, and it worked 100%. I loved it so, 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 so much. The storytelling, the writing, and yeah, I was all about it from that day on.
Now, I always love to ask, especially with Steven Universe, because there's such a depth of characters out there in the universe.
Yes.
Pun intended. Uh,
Yes.
who do you love? Who's your favorite in Steven Universe?
What a cruel question. My favorite? Oh my gosh. I don't know. I feel my goodness, because also you have to factor in fusions as well. You know what I'm saying? Like, not
Yep,
just there's because once they're a fusion, it's a different character. There's a different what
exactly.
um
If
I'm
you
a
can't pick one, I'll
no,
take a few.
I'm gonna have to say Garnet. Yeah, I'm gonna have to say Garnet is my
I'm
favorite.
nodding my head over here because Garnet's my favorite too. She's the character that I connected with the most, and it's just like I love Garnet. I love Ruby and Sapphire when they're separated, but I love them
Yeah.
together.
Ruby is so darn precious. I just can't. I can't take it. Ruby is so precious. I love their love story. I love the resilience. I love how stoic Garnet is, but I also love when Garnet sort of cracks, like when there's some cracks in the veneer, and you just sort of see like who Garnet is. That like Garnet gets scared. Garnet can make mistakes. Garnet can get overwhelmed. Garnet can become emotionally compromised, and then she falls apart, and then Garnet is no more, and then it's Ruby and Sapphire there. I love what happens when Ruby and Sapphire like make the conscious decision to come together to form Garnet. There are
Hmm.
a few scenes where they've been apart, and then we see them choose that, especially the wedding. I mean, the wedding in particular was just like, God, I cried. But, yeah, Garnet's just so darn complex, but I love that there's so many levels and layers to Garnet. And a lot of the time, we just see her being, like, the strong one. And
Hmm.
and then later when things get really dicey as far as, like, the, bismuth coming back or, the diamonds coming and all just so many things, when Garnet feels like she doesn't have a handle on a situation and just seeing how I mean, I know she's a gem, but just how human, you know what I mean? How human she can be in those moments, just how relatable she can be in those moments. Yeah, and then also her hair. All the deep stuff, but then also her hair. Really, I mean, the second I saw her, I was like, "Oh man, I want to dress up like that." So that was my first post actually on my cosplay page was Garnet. Love her so much.
I did scroll back and I was like, I want to see like how far back Bryce goes, and that was the first one. I was like, I got it. I
Yeah.
see it. Like
Yeah, Garnet's the one for me.
it's absolutely wonderful that they had this cast of characters across the board, whether it was gem or human,
Mhm.
and they were able to do something with everyone, including like the background characters, where you're like,
Yeah.
okay, they're not really doing, but they include them, and then they're there, and as you get to know them, they get to grow with Steven and with the universe, again, pun intended,
Uh-huh.
and they get to have like their own stories. Like who would have thought like Sadie and Lars would go in these incredible directions from where they started.
Right. Right. I mean, little did we know. Again, you just when I started watching the show, I had no idea how connected I would get to all of the side characters as well. To the point where it doesn't even feel like side characters; it just feels like this grand ensemble of a cast,
Hmm.
which I think is just delightful because then you really get immersed in the world, you get immersed in the universe, and it takes you on such a wonderful ride, instead of being like, "Oh, these are just some people and it's filler." And I think it was there are a few times, honestly, when I watched it through the first time where I was like, "Why do we need an episode about Mayor Dewey? Or why do we need an episode about, you know, this person or that person?" It just goes down the line. Everybody, because you're so right. Everyone sort of gets a moment for us to sort of dig deeper into their backstory, just kind of get to know them just that much better. I was like, I don't know, is this just filler? Is this just filler? Like, is there a point to this? And then things come full circle, and characters keep circling back, and I really appreciated that. I mean, that's just it just makes it seem like just such intelligent, thorough writing, and that's exciting to see in a cartoon. You know what I mean? I like the fact that they sort of challenge the audience with all of this information and with these vast like plot lines that I mean, again, the gems go back for thousands of years. And so whenever they do have flashbacks and they give us all of this info on what Homeworld is like or the war that they went through and all of that stuff, it's a lot of information. And there's so much packed into these 15-minute episodes, into this cartoon that, I'm so glad that I was forced to watch it. I'm so glad that I was challenged to watch just a song because I mean, this show, I do feel like I'm a better person for watching Steven Universe and just having that a part of my life because I'm such a mental health advocate as well, and the show is just that for me, and that's why I love it so much.
And if you haven't seen it, I believe HBO Max has all the series now, the Steven Universe, the Steven Universe Future,
Mhm.
and the Steven Universe movie, because
Yeah.
that's how streaming services work now, is that everybody
Yeah.
is somewhere on some service at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right, Bryce. We talked about this before we started recording, and I am so excited to get my 41-year-old brain to wrap around this fandom that has exploded in the past couple of years. And like I sometimes just I try to have words about
Mhm.
understanding it, and I don't. But you're new to the fandom, and you're gonna
Mhm.
help me walk me through it, and that is K-pop.
Yes, K-pop. Okay, so I mean honestly, I stumbled upon K-pop. I remember being in high school and having a friend who was like, "Oh, I love this K-pop artist," or I this K-pop video just dropped, and I was so excited and blah blah blah. And I just remember like she was my friend, so I was like trying not to judge her, but I remember there was a bit of judgment, and now I feel so bad looking back on that, and I'm judging myself for judging her a little bit, because like I get it now. I didn't before, and I feel like there are a lot of people who just like don't get K-pop, and I understand why because just when you when you just like see a random K-pop video, it can be a lot. It can just be a lot. And then you don't know the language, so you don't know what they're saying. And it's just, you just see it and you're just like, what is this? There's colors, there's a lot of hair dye, there can be a lot of sequence, there's just, bright costume, just things. It's a lot. It can be a lot for the senses. I stumbled upon K-pop through BTS, and they're the hottest K-pop group out there right now. And I I think it was sometime in 2019. I think like it was fall of 2019, and I remember I think I was like watching some like anime videos or something, and just the YouTube algorithm was like, "Hey, if you're into anime and manga and J-pop, then why not K-pop?" And so YouTube kind of shoved BTS in my face, and I was like, "Ugh, I guess I've kind of heard of them." Started hearing of them more in 2019. They were really crossing over. They've been really crossing over to the US the last like 4 or 5 years. So they've been steadily growing over here. And I was like, okay, fine. And I watched the video and I was like, I'm into this. Why? What is happening? And I'm like, wow, they're just so pretty. Like all of them, they're just beautiful, and their dancing is so in sync. And the songs, I mean, they're fun. I really something just like kind of tugged at my heartstrings, and I was like, oh, I love it. And the more I watched their content, the more I got to know the group, or the more I felt I got to know the group. And that's the whole thing. That's how they get you. Okay, this is how they get you. They they put out so much content of like behind the scenes, or like game show stuff, just like reality show stuff, just a lot of they just live their lives in front of the camera so much, and they do live streams a lot and everything, and engage with their fans a lot. And so you feel like you get a sense of their personality, you get a sense of how hard they work, and they do. The K-pop industry is amazing. It's bright, it's shiny, it's fun, but then there's a dark side that's like pretty toxic and kind of controlling, and the fans are aware of that as well. And so I think that like seeing how hard they work, and seeing and knowing all that they go through behind the scenes, they go through these trainee camps, and I mean they have to like basically move away from home at like 13, 14, sometimes like as young as that, and they're in these like dorm situations, and they're just training to be pop stars, singing, dancing. And then I think eventually they get into sort of like PR training as well. They learn languages and everything so they can engage with fans around the world. There's just so much that goes into it. They like can't date. There's no personal life. there's
Hmm.
no there's or at least there's a limited personal life as far as we can see. And we sort of see all of that. We see all that, and they try to mask the darker side of it. I think they're trying to make the system better, and I think there's been a little more exposure of that side of the K-pop world. But still, the point is, like the fans, I think, get so hyped up about them because they're these like beautiful specimens, and they're talented, but also they just work so freaking hard, and they give up so much of their lives to pursue this thing that they love and to entertain us all. And so there's just an appreciation that goes along with it that I think amps up the love and support from the fan base. I the fan base can get wild. The BTS army in particular, I think, is the strongest. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna have to say it, probably the strongest fan base for a celeb that I've ever just sort of witnessed online. They just have so much power, really. I mean, and this is mainly happening on Twitter, and I don't exist on Twitter. I just, it's too much for me. I'm pretty limited with my social media because Twitter can just be so overwhelming, and things,
Yes.
you can tear a person down in a second, or you can build a person up in a second. And that kind of power is just like, it's kind of scary to me.
Hmm.
So I have stayed away for my own sanity and my own mental health. But, things get copy and pasted to Instagram all the time, YouTube as well, Facebook, things spread. So from what I've seen of the BTS army, is, I mean, anytime BTS gets disrespected, anytime they're left out of some big event, like with the Grammys, that was a big thing over the past year. Um, the BTS army has been fighting to get BTS included in the Grammys. They performed at the Grammys, and that was a huge milestone for them, because very few K-pop artists, I think they might have been the only K-pop artists that have done that, but don't quote me on that. But it's rare, is what I'm saying. And
Right.
so the fact that they performed, that was just a huge deal for the BTS army. And the BTS was like, next, we want to be nominated and then win a Grammy. And so the BTS army was like, okay. And they just, I mean, when it comes to hashtagging and getting a message pumped out there, they can get BTS trending on multiple platforms. Just, I mean, at the drop of a hat. And YouTube, when it comes to when they drop music videos, they're BTS army and they're like, okay, guys, we have to get so many streams as soon as the video drops. And it's a really fascinating culture, the K-pop fandom. And I am sort of like a spectator of the inner workings of all of that, if that makes sense. I consider myself a fan of multiple groups. I mean, I love BTS, love GOT7. They just they just disbanded, but they're still great. Blackpink is, I'd say, probably like the biggest female K-pop group
Hmm.
right now. And because I guess as far as like female groups go, they're like BTS status as far as how just global their fan bases and how powerful their fan base is as well. But they don't have as much music as BTS, and they don't. I don't think that they've crossed over as much as BTS has, or grown as much as BTS has. That's my opinion. K-pop fans, please don't come for me. Yeah, they're at the top. They're at the top, sort of in that K-pop female group side, and then there's, I mean, TXT, Monsta X, EXO. There, I mean, just there's so many K-pop groups, but only a small few I feel kind of like break through and sort of kind of break above like the niche aspect of the fandom. Like if you're like, for you, have you heard of BTS?
Okay, so I've heard of BTS. I'm very familiar with them, just in the mainstream of that they exist and that they have great music and people love them. The other one that I heard, and this is one that I heard through my kids' cartoon show, was Monsta X was on We Bare Bears,
Oh,
and they were watching that. I was like, I know that name from somewhere, and it
yes.
was the K-pop group. And then the other one is Blackpink, because I've heard of them through a number of, because I exist on Twitter, so therefore
Yeah, so you're
uh,
gonna come
I
across the
I
K-pop
come across, yeah,
fans.
I come across the fans and the army and the hashtags. I'm really grateful, and I'm not gonna like turn it political too much,
Mhm.
but I'm really grateful for the K-pop fans who happen to like influence certain political things that happened in 2020.
Yeah, I think, and that's the positive power, the really, really positive power of like Army, for instance. Like when BTS donated to Black Lives Matter, Army matched that, and so there's like there are a lot of times when they speak out, they sort of lead in a very positive way. And then there are times, where I feel like the bands in general, all these various groups don't always get a chance to like live their lives. If they flirt or if they're hanging out too much, just in any way, shape, or form, they can get some flack from their fandoms. But when it comes to like positive waves that the groups are trying to make, or taking a stand for something, speaking up, speaking out, um, the fandom really, really backs up their dreams and their ambitions and the good things that they themselves want to do. And so that was definitely, huge. That was huge last year for sure.
For me, being how I am with very music, I don't want to call myself musically stunted. It's just that I listen to the same stuff like over and over again. I don't really like get into new things. Where would you say I should start? Like if I wanted to dip my toes into like K-pop in general, like
Mhm.
what advice would you have for a very new person like me?
I mean, honestly, I think, that the very devoted and dedicated fans have set people up for success on YouTube. There's a whole YouTube rabbit hole that I fell down when I stumbled upon them. Well, not even stumbled. YouTube shoved them in my face, and I I'm so grateful they did, because my life is forever changed. Um, But there are some videos that are like, here's a quick guide to BTS or here's a quick guide to K-pop in general. Um, I honestly, I would start with BTS and Blackpink just because I think they're the most universal as far as K-pop goes. Like I said before, like even if you're not on the inside of this fandom, you've heard of BTS and Blackpink. You know what I mean? And so starting with them, and I started with a collab. I started with Boy with Love in 2019. That was a video that YouTube shoved in my face. And that's a collab with Halsey. And so the collabs, like for me, it sort of like, it made it more familiar for me because I was like, I don't know what this world is. And so, oh, here's an artist that I recognize and like I know her music. And then she's collabing with BTS. Like, okay, interesting. And I watched it and I was like, I love Halsey, but I was like, this is all about BTS, this video. I was like, they are everything. And so the collabs for me were a cool way to be like, oh, this is familiar, but wait, no, this group is kind of stealing the show. You know what I mean? And that was what intrigued me. And then I started watching, there's so many videos that break down who each artist is within the band because at first I was like, okay, wait, who how many there's seven of them? I feel like they're multiplying. How many some groups have just like so many people in them. I like BTS is seven members. But you know, some groups, oh my gosh, I'm just like, there's just too many. I can't keep up. But yeah, BTS, I think it's a nice size group, so you can sort of like see everyone and kind of get it and like a sense. You can get a sense of who everybody is. Blackpink as well. It's four girls, and I mean, they're fierce. They are so fierce, and all of their music are just every song is a bop. Every every single song. But the thing is, they just don't put out as much music. So I feel like, and that's sort of a criticism that I think the fandom, they're just like, please, record label, let Blackpink put out more music because we love them so much and we want more of them to listen to. But if you're starting out, I think that's a great place to go because other groups that have just like so much music can be overwhelming. BTS has a lot of music, but their last few albums I think are a great way to get a sense of like who they are now. And the collabs within those albums will sort of be like, okay, I can follow along with what's happening here because I started listening to the songs that had, I think, a little more English sort of thrown in here
Hmm.
and there. And then I just started listening to songs in straight Korean. I was just like, give it to me. Give it to me. And I started not, I in no way, shape, or form can speak Korean or even like fully understand the language, but it just like my ears more in tune to it. And it just yeah, I love it. I feel like they emote so well. That for me is what I love so much about BTS is that they emote really well in a way that sort of transcends language. And music already is a way that, you know, transcends music already has a way to transcend language barriers, you know, and it has for as long as music has been around, that has been a sole purpose of it is connection and expression. And I think they do that really, really well, which is why they're so global and they have such a strong, vast fan base around the world. It's because people are like, I don't care what exactly you're saying, really. I feel it. I feel it when it's a happy tune, when it's a sad tune, when it's a deep song. And then you Google the lyrics and then, or you just put on the captions. You know, if you're watching the music video, you can put up the captions and you see what they're saying and you're like, "Oh, okay, poetry." Like some of their songs are straight poetry. And I was shook because the music is very it's just very now. It's very modern and that also really impressed me is the way that they are able to sort of mash up like a more intellectual lyric style sometimes with just these beats that you just want to dance to. Um or just vibe to, you know? And so when I'm listening to it in Korean, I'm like, this song is so cool. And then you read the lyrics and then the song is forever changed. And you're like, wow, the imagery and, you know, just the emotion. And it's really cool. They produce a lot of their own music. They write a lot of their own music. They have a lot of their label Big Hit gave them a lot of creative control with their material, which also set them apart from other groups. And it just shows that they are talented dudes and when they come together and are allowed to be talented and are sort of allowed to have some freedom in what they're creating, it really, really makes a difference. also their rap style. There are 3 rappers in the group and 4 singers,
Okay.
and I'm not a huge rap fan, to be honest. I haven't been a huge rap fan in my life. I do appreciate rap that has some, like, good meaning behind it, and also just being a singer, and having an ear for music, I do appreciate good cadence. Even if I am not vibing with the lyrics, if it's just, like, too much or too explicit for me, I still can appreciate, "Oh, okay, that really good cadence, really good rhythm." They switch it up a lot in their rap style. That's really cool. Like I can appreciate that, but I wouldn't sit and just like listen to it very often. But when it comes to K-pop, the rappers in K-pop are really interesting to me, and in BTS in particular, they really really stand out because again, they're writing these raps for themselves, and so you can tell that there's like a really strong connection to it. But it's difficult. It's really intricate a lot of the time, and it's just really cool to listen to. I feel like their talent really shines through. I can't believe I'm gushing about K-pop right now so much. Like, I rarely get a chance to do this. Like, I feel like it was such a guilty pleasure for so long that, like, when I told, like, my best friends, I was like, "Hey, so you guys, um, money's tight, but, like, I'm not gonna, like, go all out on groceries this month. I'm actually gonna go to a BTS concert." Like, that was an actual conversation I had, with one of my best friends, and she was like, "I fully support it. Like, live your best life. Like, take care of yourself, but, like." And she was like, "What is this concert?" She was like, "Money's tight for me too, but like I want to support you. I want to see like what this group is that's just completely just stolen your heart." And I was gonna go last year. I was gonna go May of last year, but then Rona stopped it all.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm like so oddly committed. Like if you had asked me like 3 years ago, you think you would ever be into K-pop? I'd be like, like probably not. And here I am, just completely engrossed in the whole like culture of it.
I'm so happy that I'm able, number one, to learn from you through your passion about K-pop, but to also give you a platform to
Just
just
nerd out.
let it all out and be like, just nerd out, because I love that I'm able to learn but also listen and just get to hear your stories. And it makes me, from listening to you, like after I finish with you tonight wrapping up the podcast, it might be something where I have to like put on some music and start my journey into the K-pop fandom and see like where I happen to go with it.
It's really really interesting once you sort of focus in, because it can be overwhelming if there are just like too many groups and too many things, and sometimes the music videos can be super super abstract to the point where you're like, what am I watching? And but if you're in on it, then you're like, oh, this is fire, like this is so good. But like for me, the intricacy of the dancing as well, like in their music videos and in their live, because they also when they perform live, it is wild how steady their vocals will be. And everyone has a sweetener track, and I artists get flack all the time for singing along to a sweetener track, but K-pop artists do it unapologetically, and I like that, and I respect that because of the crazy high level of dancing that they're doing on stage, especially like live performance. Sometimes you just really need a sweetener track because it's live performance. There's these crazy acoustics, the sound is bouncing everywhere. You need something to sort of steady you so you can hear what you're
Hmm.
singing, you can hear all the pieces of the music. So that makes sense to me, regardless of what's happening in the performance. Do what you got to do to entertain the folks. But when it comes to all of this dancing, you better bump that sweetener track all the way up. You better let the fans sing along. You know what I mean? Like we can't expect people to just be like, I don't know, robots and just be able to do so many crazy superhuman things at once. So they do these amazing, intricate, advanced dances, and they it's a nice fusion of dance as well. Like there's some sort of contemporary lyric elements to their dance, but then it's all based really in hip hop. And I mean, they're so together. They are so crisp. So crisp. And K-pop across the board, everyone trains so hard to be really polished. But something about BTS and just the epicness of their stage performances, it's on another level, and everybody knows it. Everybody in the industry knows it. They are really truly something else. So if you watch whatever like music video you end up watching, watch a live performance of it too. I mean, you just see the sweat, you see how hard they're working, and then you know artists will do the thing where they go really hard on the dance, and then they find like that one or two sweet spots in the song where they can sing full out for their
Hmm.
fans, and they do that well. It's really smart navigating of the performance. They're such good performers, such good artists. And honestly, sometimes like with K-pop just in general again, it's good music. It's good music and you're like what is so special about it? And it's just how invested people end up getting in all of the work that they put into it. I think that makes K-pop stand out. It's just a different level of expectations for them, and there's a bar set so high and they all reach that bar. None of them fall short. And that's what's so impressive. And I think that's what gets fans so hype about it.
Well, I'm going to definitely have to check it out. I'll report back to you and let you know
Please do.
of
I'm
of
actually
of
really
my journey.
curious because I mean, it's still really vast. I don't think I've given you anything specific to dive into except BTS and Blackpink, and that's a lot of content. But
I'll start slow and I'll shoot you a message and just let you know. I'll be like, I watched this. This is what I think.
I would suggest Black Swan BTS. Black Swan, I think, is Black Swan, and then On. Those
Okay.
those are two those are two recent. Those came out I think both last year or the end of 2019 through 2020. But yeah, within the last year, Black Swan and On, those were insanely great music videos, and then their live performances have all been so stunning. Um so those are the ones that I would suggest.
Okay. Well, we're gonna take a break from K-pop because you, in your own right, which I feel terrible about, because as we're talking, I'm going through your Instagram and then I'm going through your other Instagram, which I wasn't following, and I'm still not, but I'm going to rectify that in a moment. But I you wrote that you have a degree in musical theater
I
and you're an
do.
actor,
Mhm.
and I'm scrolling through your other Instagram account and I'm like, wait a minute, like you're like and I don't want to disparage people that say that they're actors and they like they say that they're actors, but they don't have the credits. But you
Right.
have like touring credits, and you had a post from 2019 about being cast in a comedy pilot for a
Right.
network, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And I know we're going to talk about musical theater, so
Mhm.
we'll stick to that. But I'm blown away by, like, here I am talking to somebody about K-pop and Steven Universe, and at the same time I could have been talking to you about like just musical theater the entire time.
I mean, musical theater is, I would say, like my first love as far as like being an artist, and um, I I've been singing as long as I can remember, and I have very supportive parents, blessed with just such supportive parents. And when I was like, I think I want to be a performer, they were like, well, all right, if you're gonna do it, then you're gonna do it well. It wasn't like, well, no, you need to do something that's more stable and like has a better sense of like financial security and longevity. They were just like, okay, okay, let's put you in musical theater camps, or let's, put you in this musical theater program in high school. And then college, I didn't go to this big fancy, university. I went to a musical theater conservatory. And so, yeah, I mean, I've been doing that professionally now since 2015. And musical theater was sort of like, I had a one track mind when it came to performing. I thought everything was going to be musical theater for me. I thought Broadway was going to be the end goal, and just all of these things. And then I ended up touring with the Book of Mormon for a year, a little over a year. I toured with them, and I understudied the lead character Nabalungi, and I was in the ensemble. And so I got to go on, a decent amount as the understudy. And so I got a taste of what it's like to be a lead in a musical. And that was so thrilling. And it was such a great experience for me to just sort of get a taste of what being on Broadway could be like, because it was a Broadway national tour. And so essentially they literally picked up the show that they had in New York and put it on the road. And so that's the closest that I've gotten to Broadway. And I've auditioned for Broadway shows time and time again, and I've gotten close time and time again. I call myself a callback queen, always a bridesmaid, never quite the bride yet. I feel like over time I realized, okay, well, how do I get a little more, I guess, stability in my life? And so after I left tour, I moved to LA and just sort of like settled there and was like, okay, most people would go to New York after a Broadway national tour and fresh off a tour, try and hop into a Broadway show. And that's typically the trajectory. Or you can go the Hollywood route. And that's what I did. So I moved to LA and just jumped into pilot season and auditioned, and started crossing over to film and TV. And not so much film yet. I've auditioned for movies and again, callbacks, but never quite in there. But television, I've been on a couple of TV shows, and you mentioned the pilot. Thank you. That was just so huge and so exciting. The pilot didn't get picked up, but the experience I think was just so worth it, so valuable. And so now that's kind of where my mind is focusing a little bit more on film and TV and trying to establish myself more there. But you know, the industry is fickle, and it can be hard to have a consistent line of work. I'm been living gig to gig for years now, and in between that time is when I would still, in between auditioning for TV, I would do musicals in LA, if and when I could. And so I've done Spring Awakening, I think was the first one I did out of college. Um, and then when I moved back to LA after touring, I was in Ragtime at the Pasadena Playhouse. And then after that, I was in Passion at the Boston Court, Pasadena. And Passion was cut short because of the pandemic, but that was just really exciting to be. I was a lead in Ragtime and then a lead in Passion. And yeah, I mean, I love singing and dancing and entertaining people through song.
I have a question, and I'm going to just
Hmm.
throw it out there because I don't know the answer, and I don't know where it might lead with this question. When you audition for
Hmm.
a show, are you like? And I guess it's like, do you are you interested in the show beforehand before you're auditioning, or are you just going in and auditioning and then they tell you about like what the show is later? I know with like musicals and stuff, like you're with some of them, they're fair, like they've been around
Yeah.
for a while. But do you have a sense of what you're auditioning for? Or are you just going in and like, here I am and I'm auditioning. Oh, it's a sci-fi show. Great, I can do that, and I'll figure it out.
You most definitely have an idea of what you're getting yourself into. For me, I got an agent before I graduated college, which just a blessing. And so, if you do have an agent, and if you don't, I have a lot of friends who are thriving without an agent. But the point is, you sort of an agent would sort of vet, what auditions you're going to, and so they see, okay, here's a show that my client could be in. And so they pitch you for the show. They say, hey, can Bryce audition for this? These are her credentials, and this is the experience she has. This is the voice type that she has. She could totally play this part. Here's her headshot. And then they sort of see you. And a lot of it can be superficial at first. They're like, oh, that's not the look we're going for. But still, you can go in and audition even if you're not the right look, because you never know where you can be placed elsewhere in the show. Um, but typically, like, auditioning for things even without an agent, you read a breakdown. So you see the audition for whatever show it is, and there's a synopsis of what the show is, and then every character has a little breakdown of, the age, and some character traits that they have, and then you get either assigned scenes to read for that character, as that character in the audition, or you come in with a monologue of your own that is in the style of the show. And it's up to us as actors to do our own research as well before going into a show. A lot of the time, like you said, a lot of musicals have been around for a while. And then in college, too, getting a BFA musical theater, they really just sort of like hammer into you musical theater history. And so we studied a lot of different shows that sort of helped establish musical theater and what musical theater is. But then also we studied composers. And so even if it's a newer show, but it's written by, like, say, Stephen Sondheim, you have a sense of what the music is going to sound like, or have a sense of what the feel of the show will be, because Stephen Sondheim is really huge. Stephen Sondheim is my favorite uh, musical theater composer. But here's one that everyone will know. Andrew Lloyd Webber. I was trying to think
Yes.
of one. I was trying to think of somebody who I think would be familiar to the masses. Andrew Lloyd Webber has done a really great job of crossing over to film, and therefore crossing over to a mass market of people. You know, through Phantom of the Opera, Jesus Christ Superstar, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, ooh, Cats, but we won't talk about that one. Um, I love the stage musical, but the movie anyway. So, yeah, so when you hear Andrew Lloyd Webber, you kind of get a sense of the musical stylings because I mean, all of those shows that I listed of Andrew Lloyd Webber's are very different, I'd say aesthetically, but when it comes to the music, you kind of understand what the vocal range of particular characters may be, and yeah, you just it becomes familiar essentially, and so you have a point of reference, and you just go in with a song that is similar to that, or a song from the show if you're bold. And sometimes they ask for music from the show, and you perform for them the best you can. And sometimes it's a really small room, sometimes it's a really big room. Sometimes the room has no acoustics. Sometimes the acoustics are really hot, and you just hear your voice bouncing off the walls like crazy. Sometimes they like look at you. Sometimes they don't at all. Um, uh, One time, I auditioned for Frozen on Broadway, and I kept getting called back, and then I went to final callbacks in New York, and that was the first time I ever had a callback in a Broadway theater, like in a Broadway house on stage, to an empty an empty theater. It was really overwhelming because in a space like that, acoustically, I mean, your voice just gets swallowed up if you don't have a mic.
Hmm.
Um, and that's exactly what happened to my voice. um, but that was overwhelming because you kind of only see that in movies. I remember the first few auditions I went on, my mom, asked me what it was like, and she would reference certain movies where the character is on a stage and the director is far out in the house of the Broadway theater, and
Hmm. Yep.
it's dark out in the house, you can't see, it's just a sea of black and empty seats, and you don't know where the director is sitting, and you're on stage and the lights on you, and then you sing your song, and then they cut you off like 2 seconds after you start singing, and they're like, thank you, and that's it. You know what I mean? How many times have you seen that sort of like audition musical theater trope in movies, and
All the time.
exactly, exactly, but it like never that I don't think in the more recent generation of musical theater that is something that happens too often. But that was the first time that I experienced that, and I was like, wow, this is like really weird and full circle, um, to have watched that on TV, so often, and then to actually be doing it. And I remember going back to my mom and being like, so that actually happened. That thing that happens in movies that actually happened to me today. So yeah, that's I guess a little bit of insight on the musical theater experience, I guess.
I'm not a big musical theater person. I've seen a few on Broadway, or luckily Hamilton on
Yeah,
Disney Plus. Like
yeah.
that's pretty much the extent. Is just a few here or there. What are and I this is such a weird question to ask because a lot of things are still shut down. We're recording in April. I still don't know about like when things are going to open back up,
Mhm.
here or like London's West End and
Right,
and
right.
wherever. But what are some shows that you love, like musical theater shows that you absolutely adore that you would recommend to people to like watch either in person or find a recording somewhere like out there?
Oh, okay. So I'm a pretty I think some of my taste can be a bit obscure. So I'm going to try and I'll do an obscure recommendation and then something that's a little more mainstream. So my obscure recommendation would be Sondheim. I mentioned Stephen Sondheim earlier. He's my favorite musical theater composer. The show I did last year that got cut short because of COVID was Passion. And that is one of, if not like my absolute favorite Stephen Sondheim musical. I think it's hard for me to narrow down a Sondheim musical that's my favorite. Really, like it pained me to say that that one was my absolute favorite, but I think I don't want to lie anymore. I feel like it kind of is because they're all so great and they're all so intricate, and they are a bit more obscure as far as like musical theater goes. Passion, especially so. It's a show with no intermission. It it didn't have a long run on Broadway, but it won Tonys. So, it has the it has some clout to back it up, but it wasn't one it's not, a Hamilton. It's not something that everyone was like running to the theaters to see because it was more like I would um I would equate it with like a foreign film, like they always win awards, but they're kind of they can be kind of slow or they can be kind of like calm in a way that you're just like, what's going on? What is this about? Why is this good? Like I know it's good, but why is it good? There's just something like docile about it, I feel. And people tend to fall asleep on foreign films, but then you're like, this is stunning, this is beautiful, it's winning all these awards as it should, And so that for me is kind of what passion is. It's like the foreign film of musical theater. It's absolutely beautiful. And I remember when I first watched it, I watched the DVD version. It was a live taping of it, of the original Broadway cast. And I started out being like, okay, what is this? And I get the singing's good and the music is good. It's different. It's very unique, but it's good, I guess. And then I just got like swept up in the story and I've it I've watched it. I've watched that recording so many times. It's on YouTube. You can watch Passion, original Broadway cast on YouTube. And the person who introduced me to it fell asleep while we were watching it. He was like, he completely fell asleep. And I was like, how are you going to fall asleep? He's like, it's good. Just watch it. And I watched it. And then it became one of my favorite musicals. Another one is Into the Woods, Stephen Sondheim. Um, that one I think is one of his more mainstream uh, musicals because it's based on fairy tale characters. And so it's really relatable and people like can recognize what's happening a little easier, follow the story. And there's humor throughout that musical as well, but it's also dark. The first act is all fairy tale, and the second act is just kind of tragedy to the end, and then with a glimmer of hope at the very end. And so I kind of love it because of that. It's really different. It's showing the truth behind the fairy tales. I mean, like with Cinderella, the version of the fairy tale where her stepsisters like they cut off their heel and they cut off their toe to fit the glass slipper when the prince comes along, like
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. Like it shows like the darker, like truer, like Grimm brothers versions of these fairy tales and kind of showing that life can be dark and things can happen unexpectedly. But how do you cope with that? How do you grow from that? Is basically what Act Two is like teaching you. There's always a really deep and complex lesson and subtext to Sondheim's musicals and Into the Woods. In particular, I really like that because it starts, you laugh and there's fun songs and stuff, and then it's just like, oh my god, doom and gloom. What? And then you're like, but I guess that's life. And then, we move on and we grow from it and stuff. And so, yeah, I really love Into the Woods. Another good one is Once on This Island. I really love that one. That one is more recently on Broadway. And the revival was stunning. I don't know if there's footage of it, if there's like full footage of it online. I mean, there's always a bootleg online. You didn't hear it from me. But but I think on YouTube there's some good clips of Once on the Island, the revival. The original production, awesome as well. But the revival was really interesting because it was a really pared down version. I saw it twice on Broadway. I just had the great fortune of seeing it twice. And I'm so glad. And I saw different cast members when I went as well. Lea Salonga was in it when I saw it, and I freaked out. I was so happy that I got to see her in that show. And she's not one that you would expect to be in that show. But she was playing one of the gods. She was playing Urzuli, the god of love. And typically, Once on This Island is a black show. It's an all black show. But with the gods, they're these deities. They're these beings, these entities. And so they were like, we'll cast who we want to cast. And I was here for it. She was great. So those are some. Oh, and Rent. Rent is a modern classic that first drew me to musical theater. Rent was, I think, I saw it when I was 10. Are you familiar with Rent at all?
I've seen bits and pieces. My wife loves Rent, so I know more of it from her experience than from seeing it.
Rent is a really good rock opera. Um, and it was, oh my gosh, it was Jonathan Larson's, passion project. And, he passed away before he could see it come to full fruition. And I think that is also part of the legacy of the show, and has just sort of helped it live on and on and on. And there's just something just so honest and raw and edgy and authentic about the show that me, again, I saw the movie when I was 10. My mom was like, "Oh, my daughter's in a musical theater. I'll take her to see Rent." Little did she know. I mean, when Out Tonight happened and we have Rosario Dawson just like, stripping on the screen, and then we have people, like, shooting up in alleyways and stuff. She was like, "What did I bring my daughter to?" Meanwhile, I was sitting there just eating it up and not even fully knowing or understanding a lot of, like, the deeper themes or really what was going on, just knowing that there were people who were living life and they were coming together in love and in, finding joy, like, scraping at what they could to find joy, and that was just so powerful to me, and that was just imprinted upon me, and so growing up in musical theater, like, that was one of my first moments of like, "Oh, I love the way you can tell a story through song." Rent really did that for me at at freaking 10 years old.
That is amazing. I love that story. That's so cool.
Yeah, that one's a special one.
Awesome. I mean, I always cross my fingers, especially with COVID and the shutdown, and I just I don't know what like the landscape is going to look like when shows start opening back up. I know that some shows
Yeah,
were like, okay, you know what, we're done. Like we're not gonna be back whenever it comes around again.
yeah.
And other shows will be there, and then there'll be new shows. And
I have some friends in productions now, which has really kind of blown my mind, and they're wearing those clear face masks, and they're like the shields, they're plastic, but it just goes around the
mhm,
mouth, and so you can see their mouth, you can see their lips moving and everything, and then their mic is on the inside of that as well, and so it's sort of because singing, there's a lot of spit flying.
yeah,
There's a lot, and I and we, pride ourselves on, like, enunciating in shows as well, so that's a big part of musical theater is learning how to enunciate. Having good diction is really important on stage. Like, stage actors know how to do that. They know how to bite a word, and because of that, you've got spit flying, and then when you sweat, and then the sweat's dripping down, and that flies everywhere as well, and so it can get pretty I mean, when you're on stage, it's just not conducive for, virus times, for pandemic times. And so the production that I saw a couple of my friends in, I thought it was really interesting to see how they were coping with that. They were doing social distancing and still having those shields up for extra measure, it looked like. So I mean, that's one way. That's one way, I guess. But a lot of musical theater is about being intimate. It's about intimately telling a story through song and dance. Like, that is the whole point. And so whether, the characters, it's a love story and the characters are kissing or hugging or they're dancing together, there's, dancers that are a lot of partner dancing and things like that, close quarters backstage,
mhm,
dressing rooms and things like that. It's just I'm not I really am not sure how and when it is going to happen, but I'm hopeful, I guess, and really intrigued to see how we're gonna get back to it because I mean, we gotta find a way because
yeah,
musical theater is just I don't know what I would do without it, and I've missed it so much, and that's why cosplaying became so important for me. Like, even pre-pandemic, in between TV auditions and stuff, or in between TV gigs, to be creative and to entertain in some way, dressing up as characters and then singing cosplay covers and stuff like that. That was kind of a way for me to fill that void. And then when the pandemic happened, that's all I had for a while. And then, I kind of got in a rut of not doing anything for a bit because it just still wasn't quite the same. But I mean, we're finding ways with virtual things, pre-recorded stuff. There's just the energy that I think that's the biggest thing as a performer, as a stage performer, just like feeling the energy. Like, when I did Passion last year, we had previews. We didn't officially open, but we had previews before COVID happened. And it's a show where there are no applause breaks built into the show. The show just kind of plows forward. And applause is what artists, I mean, we don't do it for the applause, but like, we do it for the applause. It's, you know what I mean? Like, we do it for ourselves. We want to tell the story. We want to entertain, all of these things. But applause feels good. The same way, for a comedian, laughter feels good. You want people to laugh. You want people to clap. But with Passion, just you could just feel the energy. Even without a clap, that the message is received. That the performance is being received. it's just so different. It's this crazy, like, beautiful sense of camaraderie that comes with performing live like that, and God, I miss it. God, I miss it. Love it so, so, so much.
Well, you provided the perfect segue into our last conversation, which is cosplay. Which, granted, we started off with cosplay
Right.
for a little bit, but here we are, full circle, wrapping up with cosplay.
Yes.
I found you through cosplay. Thankfully, somebody shared your work, which I love it. I love when people share others' work and is like, look at this person. Like,
Yeah, it's such a supportive community, and it's so amazing.
now you've done a number of different cosplays, and I love a lot of what you do, your work. When you're choosing someone to cosplay, are you looking at the love of the character, the love of the outfit, a combination of both? Like where do you go with your decision on who you are taking on?
Yeah, I feel like it's a combination of everything. "Oh, that outfit is so cool. I wanna dress up in that look." Or, "Oh, I really, really vibe with this character." Like with Garnet, I really vibe with Garnet, so I wanna dress up as Garnet. I wanna find a way to dress up as Garnet. "Oh, man, I would love to sing 'It's Over, Isn't It?' Okay, so let me put together a Pearl cosplay." So, for me, a lot of the time, music has driven my cosplays as well. Anastasia, that was what I just posted recently, and I was like, been singing this song for a while, gets stuck in my head all the time. So I want to cover Once Upon a December. Okay, well, then let's put together an Anya cosplay and then the glow up when she's like full on Anastasia. And, just stuff like that. I, to keep the circle going round and round, we talked about K pop. I've done K pop cosplays as well. I've done Blackpink and BTS dance covers, and I'll dress up in the style of the looks that they had in their music videos, or in a live performance or something. And I've I mean, it was embarrassing at the time, but I was just like, I'm having fun living my best life. So I learned the K-pop choreo best as I could. Definitely not on
Hmm.
par with them. And just I dance, and that one was a little more out of my comfort zone. Like the singing stuff, I feel more confident and comfortable with because I'm a singer. Dancing, I call myself a mover. I can move, but I'm not like a dancer. So I I try to dip my toe in like all of the fandoms that I love so much. So, musical theater, I try to cross things over. Like Anastasia was on Broadway. That was a Broadway musical. It was made into a Broadway musical recently. And so it all kind of comes together. I've also done Mimi from Rent as a cosplay cover. And so dress up in her Broadway outfit and sing Out Tonight and make a video. And so I try to bring a wide variety to my cosplay covers. And Steven Universe, I mean, in particular, there's still so many songs I want to sing from Steven Universe that like my mind is constantly reeling of, okay, I need to put together an Amethyst cosplay. Okay, and then I got to do Peridot because there are some really fun group songs and I want to play all the characters. So yeah, I let the costume drive me, I let the music drive me, I let the character drive me because at the end of the day, all of those things just make it so special already. And so it's all of those components that really pull me in. Esmeralda, that was a fun one too. I got to dance and sing um as Esmeralda when I did that cosplay last year. That was so fun.
I've scrolled through your Instagram quite a few times, whether it's us talking now or beforehand.
Mhm.
Uh, there's a few that stick out to me, but like there's always something about somebody that cosplays as Kiki from Kiki's Delivery Service. There's always that energy, but also just that like innocence and cuteness of like the smile and the hair and the hair bow and like I
Yeah.
don't know what it is, but it's always just it brightens my day. It brightens my like moment that I get to see the picture. It's like, it just does something like just
I
so
love Kiki
wonderful.
so much. Thank you. I love that movie so much, and I watched it a ton as a kid, and so that was definitely one that was high up on my list. And like early on, in my cosplaying and in my posts and stuff, I did a version of Kiki, with a wig and everything. And then last year, I was like, I want to do it with my natural hair, and so that's been fun too, redoing characters. And that also allows me to just kind of keep producing like fresh content, but without having to break the bank too much. I can go back
Mhm.
and recycle the actual costume pieces and maybe alter it a little bit or change it up here and there. But the focus will be on the different hair or the different makeup and show like, my version of that and making it fresh and new. And so that's been fun to think of as well. So yeah, I try to stay creative with, what I'm pulling from because I just so many fandoms that I feel like inform so much of like who I am. Because I'm just I'm such a freaking nerd, and so I get really attached to things. Like I'm so attached to Steven Universe growing up, and even still now. So I'm so attached to Harry Potter, Batman. I'm so attached to Batman, and so like for Batman, I was like, as much as I love Batman and as much Batman apparel as I own, I've rarely done any DC on my page. I think I've done the Joker a couple of times, playing with my hair and different like, the face paint because there's so many different versions of the Joker makeup. But when it comes to, like, Batman, my favorite superhero, my favorite vigilante, I was like, "Where's the representation on your page, Bryce?" And so I did, like, a Black Lives Matter, Batman, like, mashup reel for that, and that for me was, like, really, really fun and just felt really good because I was like, "Okay, black and yellow and Black Lives Matter, black and yellow colors, and then Batman," it all just kinda, like, came together. So I, like, wore, like, not even a fraction of the Batman apparel that I own in that. And then, like, for Christmas and stuff, I started throwing Batman out there, like, literally on I think, yeah, like, a day or 2 before Christmas. I was like, "I'm just gonna do this cosplay," and I'm at home because of COVID, so, like, my family, they're so supportive, and they're so helpful when I do my cosplays with, like, lighting or camera stuff, or I'll just be walking around with crazy makeup on sometimes. And, when you black out your eyes for a mask for Batman or other, superheroes and
Mhm.
stuff, when you take the mask off, you just have black circles around your eyes. And so I get lazy after I do a shoot because I just go right into editing stuff. And so I'm walking around the house looking like a crazy person, just like with black circles around my eyes. And, my family, they accept me as I am. I'm grateful.
Well, I do have to ask because you tackled some characters that don't really get a lot of love, at least that I've seen.
Mm.
Like Thumbelina
Yes.
is one, and then even the character from Fantastic Beasts, Serafina
Yes.
Pickery,
Yes.
and I'm like I love seeing them, but at the same time I don't feel like I see them enough to where like they're in the consciousness, I guess, of
Yeah,
the
like, you don't
community.
see
And
people cosplaying them too often. I was like, "What's that about?"
no, I love it. Like I was all excited to see your work on that. I was like, I know these characters, but dang if I don't see them ever.
Right, and sometimes I'm like, "Okay, is this too, like, niche of a fandom, or did people grow up watching Thumbelina over and over again on VHS like I did? Like, is that anybody? Anybody? Just me?" That kinda thing, like, I'm always like, "How will this go?" But I've seen actually, some really cool Thumbelina, cosplays, like, really polished, like, full on, like, screen to cosplay, like, perfection, and seeing that, I was like, "Oh, cool," people are all about Thumbelina, people are in on it, like, that'll be fun. But when it comes to, like, Serafina, that for sure, especially because Fantastic Beasts, as compared to Harry Potter, doesn't get done as much, as far as cosplay, and
Hmm.
so but she just seeing that she's, like, this powerful, like, black character, to be this fabulous, like, cool, fancy witch, and to be she's the head of MACUSA, right? The
Yeah, yeah, she's the head. Yep.
Yeah, and so yeah, yeah. I mean, she was on my list for a while, and I loved, like, her, like, head wrap situation, so I was like, how do I do that? But also, okay, a really random one that I did that I really, really loved, and I was like, "People are either gonna get this or it's gonna go over their heads," and more people got it than I thought, was Madame Zeroni from Holes. I I cosplayed her, around Christmas time because I did this Eartha Kitt, tribute video, and so because Eartha Kitt, she was Catwoman, and then she was Yzma, and then she's Madame Zeroni, and so, she's just sort of, like, been this iconic staple, throughout generations, and I was like, "Okay," she also sang Santa Baby. She made Santa Baby super iconic, and then there's a particular look that she wore in the music video or the, live performance rather of that song. And so I was like, "Let me just put this all together." And I was like, "Are people gonna are people gonna latch on to Madame Zeroni? Did people vibe with Madame Zeroni as much as I did watching Holes over and over again growing up, like, literally over and over again?" And the way that she, like, talks, she has a very specific, like, way of speaking that you hear her voice and you know it's Eartha Kitt. So, that was a really niche one that I did last year that I was, like, really, proud of, like, the, like, old lady makeup and the she had, like, this crazy I mean, this, headscarf on and, like, this crazy, like, shawl thing that she had on that had, like, beads, and it was a lot, and I had a blast. I didn't wanna take it off.
I'm looking at it right now, and I didn't realize that that was you, when I saw it because of the
Yes.
makeup. I was like, "That there's no way," but here you are talking about it, and
Yes,
yeah,
mission accomplished.
it's so good. I mean, it's so wonderful, and I didn't realize that, because I've never seen, and sad face to everyone that's gonna hear this, I've never seen Emperor's New Groove, so I did not know that
What?
Eartha Kitt voiced that character.
Yzma, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, and it is such great voice work, like, such great voice work to the point where you just, like people love we love Yzma. If you love the movie, then you love Yzma. You love to hate her, and you just she's evil, she's crazy, she's amazing, and I wanted to do an Yzma cosplay for a while, or at least like I was like maybe for Halloween sometime. Like it's been on my mind for a long while, and so when this Christmas Santa baby idea came to me, I was like, okay, well, finally I have a chance to dress up as Yzma and then be in this cosplay for as long as possible. Because, you know, sometimes for cosplay, you literally do hours of work, you know, makeup and hair, and then putting the cosplay together. I hand stitch stuff, sometimes I hot glue, and then I put it on and take some pictures, and then I got to take it off. You know what I mean? Because if I'm not doing a cosplay cover, then it's quick. It's you're in, get some pictures, maybe a reel, and then you're out. But when I make a cover, I get to do, you know, more work in the cosplay. I get to just sit and do take after take and, you know, do different versions of this or that, singing the song, and it was really fun. That was a really fun shoot.
That is awesome. I love just going through and just seeing everybody's, work on Instagram and seeing where you started and where you have come to. What do you have on your list? Because every cosplayer has a list of what they'd like to do in the future.
Oh, I do.
Where
Just let me
what
pull that
what do
list
you
up.
have?
Let me see. Um oh my gosh. Oh, okay. So again, circling back to musical theater, a cosplay that I've really wanted to do is Elphaba from Wicked. That I don't know if you're familiar with the show at all, but
Yep,
yeah,
yep, I saw that.
yeah, Wicked. Oh, you saw it? Did you see it in New York or did you see it touring?
Touring, yeah.
Awesome. Um, I've seen the show, I think 4 or 5 times. I've seen it 4 times. So I've seen it twice in California for the tour, and then I saw it on Broadway, and then I saw it on the West End. And just so cool. It's so good. And it's so exciting to hear those crazy awesome vocals. It's such a hard show to do though. Like I couldn't imagine. And I don't have the voice type for Elphaba. I'm a soprano. And so like I that's why for me, like I don't know if you've seen the K-pop opera mashup videos. I do K-pop and opera with a good friend of mine, Julia Axe. And that's another way to include cosplay and K-pop and mash it all together, but also include some opera because that's also what I do, and that's an extension. You know, that opera sort of paved way for musical theater, and so I have an idea, I guess, of singing songs as Elphaba, or rather, singing songs dressed up as Elphaba, but singing them as Glinda because Glinda's more my voice type. So I was like, "That's the best I can do, or else I will kill my voice trying to sing Alphabet because that music is hard." But that definitely is one that's on my list. I've compiled all the components for that cosplay. I still have some sewing to do, but um, it's all here and just waiting for me to hot glue and sew things together. I also want to do the genie from Aladdin because it's the genie from Aladdin.
I can get behind that. That's a good
Like, and
choice.
I wanna specifically do, Will Smith because I it's more relatable for me. Like, I'm like, "Heck yeah." Now, Robin Williams will always be iconic. I didn't think I didn't think that I would be okay with anyone playing the genie other than Robin Williams. But then Will Smith, like, made it his own, and of all things in the film, I thought he was, like, one of the best one of the best parts of that movie. And so I was like, "I kinda wanna do Will Smith's version of Friend Like Me." And also just singing it in a nice chill, like, dude key, like, and just sing just kind of, like, talk rap, sing the song and not have to, like, go crazy on my vocals because my voice is a little tired. I wanna do Daphne and Velma from Scooby-Doo. And I have a green screen, so I wanna do them I wanna do both cosplays and then edit them together, in a fun way,
Awesome.
that kinda stuff. Doing a Bridgerton cosplay. Um, I don't know if have you seen Bridgerton at all?
I have not, not yet.
That's a really cool one because I love doing, period pieces, and especially when there's, like, a lot of, like, color, when there's a lot of inclusion, because there were people of color in, uh, in places of or in um, nobility at the time. There were people of color in
Yep.
nobility at the time of 1700s, 1800s. I mean, and way way back, it did happen, and there are those stories, and they rarely get told. And so a while ago, I did a Dido Elizabeth Bell Lindsay cosplay, which is the longest name ever, and I love it. And I don't know if you're familiar with her at all, but she was this Black British heiress in the 1700s, and there's a film about her. And I fell in love with that film because I love watching British period pieces, and I just love them so much, but never, felt represented in them unless it was servant, slave, that sort of thing. And
Right.
her story does involve slavery because her uncle was he was a catalyst in abolishing slavery. He didn't he didn't quite do it. The movie definitely dramatizes that, as in he was so against slavery. He wasn't like super against it, but because of his mixed niece, Dido, he had a different perspective, and he was one of the catalysts in abolishing slavery in the UK. And that story was just like so fascinating to me. And again, never gets told. And so when it got told, I clung to it. And so I did that cosplay and did a monologue from that movie. And then when Bridgerton came out, I was like, more Black British nobles? I'm here for it. Um, and so, I mean, and just black and brown just sprinkled throughout the whole show. It was a delight to see that. Um, so definitely have that cosplay on my list, high up on my list.
Very cool. I'm definitely excited to see what you create and you come up with next. And Bryce, for people that have listened to your episode and they want to see what you're working on or what you're doing, what are the best places to do so out there on the great wide world of the internet?
Well, I am on YouTube and I'm on Instagram. So my Instagram for cosplay is bryce.cosplays. It's my pride and joy because it is a place where I can just be me in all of my nerd glory and connect with more nerds. And then my actor page is Bryce_Charles. And that's where like my TV stuff is, where my voiceover stuff is. And well, my voiceover stuff, not yet. That's coming up soon. And YouTube is Bryce Cosplays, and that's where my full cosplay covers are. So you can check that out. And yeah, I hope you guys check me out and enjoy.
Well, Bryce, I want to say thank you. Number one, because I know we went a little bit longer than
And I
usual,
know that's
but
partly me rambling.
oh,
So
no,
thank you.
I'm here for it, so I love it, but I want to say thank you for, number 1 for coming on, but for also sharing your stories, especially about your childhood and getting into musical theater and your journey into that, and then just helping me with K-pop and just everything. I have been sitting here, and I know what it must sound like on your end with just with talking about everything, but I have been sitting here just, like, absorbing everything you've been saying. I'm very much looking forward to, like, going out there and just checking out what's out there on YouTube,
Yay.
and just it has been a delight and a pleasure getting to talk with you tonight.
Likewise, I'm so grateful. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for indulging me in all of my nerdiness. And I appreciate this platform for people to just embrace all of their fandoms and, whether they're super niche or not, or super mainstream. So it's super cool and I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Tales from the Fandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.